Prynhawn da pawb a chroeso i'r ail sesiwn o cyrsiau Carlam Cymraeg, sesiwn Cymraeg a Iaith gyda Miss Childs. Good afternoon all and welcome to the final instalment of the cyrsiau Carlam Cymru Welsh second language session with Miss Childs. All the recordings over the last 4 weeks are available on the Google site, the website that we've created. So I'll pop the website, the URL, into the Q&A section for you to click on, where you can gain access to the recordings and any resources that have been shared. Diolch yn fawr, Miss Childs, bant y ti.
Okay, prynhawn da pawb, and diolch yn fawr for tuning up to the last session. So today we are going to revise the amser model, the conditional tense. Then we are also going to revise the amser dyfodol. So in order to achieve the high levels in your exams now, you need to be switching your tenses. So you wouldn't be able to get a C+ unless you're switching tenses. Then we are going to discuss how to complete a 10-mark question, and we are going through some examples which will hopefully be useful to you at home in order to help you prepare for these classroom assessments. And finally, we're going to apply our future and conditional tense skills to answer a 10-mark writing paper today. So hopefully we'll be more prepared for future lessons. So in the chat now, please can you type in any future tense or conditional patterns that you know in Welsh. So it could be I would like in Welsh, Tom would like, I will be, he will be. Type in the chat if you know. I know we've haven't really been in regular lessons since December, but if you know anything, just type in the chat. So we could start with a H, or maybe for a B for the future tense. Okay, if you're not sure, here is a copy of the amser model, the future tense. So the first one, hoffwn I would like. Hoffet ti, that's the informal and singular. Hoffai hoffai hi, hoffwn ni, hoffech chi, you would like, and hoffwn nhw, they would like. If we have a look at the other patterns, if you notice there is a clear pattern that each of them follow, so they all have the same ending. So if you want to switch from saying I would like and just want to say would, you would change hoff to vas. If you want to say could instead, you will add on gall and dil for should. The easiest way to remember these patterns, if you think of the song The Saints Go Marching In, so hoffwn ni, hoffai ti, hoffai e, hoffai chi, hoffwn nhw, a hoffwn nhw, a hoffai Tom. So it will help you remember those patterns. At the moment, the exam board are using the dylan nhw pattern or dylai pattern a lot in the exam, so you might have to be asking people or giving people advice in the exam. So dyla ti fwyta salad. So this is a really important phrase to learn, and also this one here. If you are using these, it would be a bonus on top, so gall and bas. And remember, if you want to switch these to the past tense, you would just add on them. For hoff, you would not have to mutate the H, but for the rest, think of boyfriend, B to F, so you change bas to F, drop the G, and add a double D for this one if you want to use the negative. That would show off to the examiner even more. Okay, so if you notice, they're all in different colours, so the more patterns you use, the higher marks you will achieve. So your task now, you need to cyfieithwch y brawddegau yma I Cymraeg. So you need to translate these patterns into Welsh. To help you, I've put some vocabulary here. So look on the left-hand side. If you do finish, I want you to see if you can switch these to the negative tense. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to translate these into Cymraeg. So again, if you notice, these are different patterns, so they gradually or progressively become more challenging. Type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Remember, I would like is here. You should also here. She could here. We could, or we would here. And they would here. Another point grammatic, another grammar tip. After some of these conditional tense patterns, because we don't use N, we would use a soft mutation, a treiglad troi-nol. So some of these would follow a mutation as well. So remember, type in the chat if you need any help with any vocab. So remember, to there is there. Cinema is very similar to English. On the weekend, you should eat. Salad is exactly the same in Welsh. Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. So if we say 2 munud, 2 more minutes, and then we'll go through some of the answers. New clothes is here. So remember, Welsh is backwards, so clothes would come first, dillad, and then newydd. In Cardiff, remember there is a nasal, a treiglad troi-nol mutation there. Then they would like to live. They would like is over here. Spain, think what's on your back. That's an easy way to remember Spain in Welsh. And then after gyda, it would be an aspirate mutation. Don't panic too much about that at the moment. So 1 munud now, 1 more minute, and then we'll go through some of the atebion. So remember, type in the chat if you have any questions or if you need any help with vocab. So you would use this tense in maybe extended writing, short writing. For your speaking evidence, you'd have to use the conditional tense, maybe referring to a picture about sports and discussing what you'd like to play in the future. And remember, the more patterns you use, the higher marks you will receive in the overall exams. Okay, if we symud ymlaen now and go over the atebion. So I would like to go to the cinema on the weekend. Hoffwn i fynd i'r cinema ar y penwythnos. So ar y penwythnos is on the weekend. If you notice, because there's no N here, that's why there's a treiglad meddwl, a soft mutation. So mynd changes to fynd. Here's an excellent example. As I've mentioned already, you may be given maybe a profile about someone's eating habits, and you may have to give them advice on how to keep fit. So dylety, the exam board would give you 1 mark for giving advice, and also a 2nd mark if the sentence makes sense. So dylety about a salad. So dylety is a really useful phrase to learn. Gallech chi dansio yn y disco. She could dance in the disco. Baswn ni'n prynu dillad newydd yn Nghaerdydd. So remember, before place names in Welsh, there's a treiglad troi-nol, so a nasal mutation. Always think back to Wales, rydyn byw yn Nghymru. And hoffwn i fyw yn Sbaen gyda theulu. So again, there's a nasal, soft mutation here, and then an aspirate mutation there, so TCP. And Sbaen is the word for Spain in Welsh. Remember, a capital letter for those. So feel free to share your marks if anyone received 5 marks or 5 out of 5. Okay. So now we are going to go over the amser dyfodol. So the future conditional tense in the cadarnhaol, the positive. So I will, or it could also mean I will be, is bydda un. You will be in the singular. So if you were talking to one person, or if it's informal, so you know them quite well, you would use bydda un. Bydd un for he will. Bydd hi'n for she will. bydd and someone's name yn, byddwn ni'n for we will, byddwch chi'n for you will. Remember, that's the formal version. So if you want to show respect to someone, or if you don't know someone that well, you could also use this if you're talking to a group of people, so if it's plural. Then byddan nhw'n is they will be. Okay, they do contain similar patterns to other tenses, so e''n for she, he, h''n for she. And if you want to change this to the negyddol, to the negative, always think of boyfriend. First of all, you would mutate the B to an F and then add on them in. So if you have a look at my example here, bydda un, I will be, changes to fydda I ddim yn, I will not be. Okay, and again, these are in different colours as you need to show off your phrases to the examiner. The more patterns you use, again, the higher marks you will achieve, and changing things to negative will also secure your A stars as well. So your task now, you need to llenwch y bwlchau, fill in the gaps in the sentences using the future tense patterns. So I've to help you, I've put a reminder of the future tense patterns here. So if you're struggling, look in the list for apostrophe N and copy down what's close to it. So if you think I apostrophe N is here, you'd copy down B, for example. If you finish, I would like you to ysgrifennu frawddeg ei hun, so write your own sentences. So you are filling in the gaps. So something mynd i'r cinema yfory. So something going to the cinema tomorrow. Something in, so you need to look for in the list. Teithio I Portugal and the dyfodol. Travelling to Portugal in the future. Something Simon and symud I Sbaen gyda theulu. So something Simon will be moving to Spain in the future. So which one has a name in the list and what you need to copy down before? Chi, again, remember that's formal. So you need to look for chi on the list, copy down what's before it, and then prynu dillad newydd. We've already had dillad newydd today, so that is new clothes. So something, new clothes today. And number 5, they've got noon, so have a look for noon on the list and copy down what's before it. Mynd ar wyliau yfory, going on holidays tomorrow. So if we say 1 minute now, 1 more minute, remember type in the chat if you need any help with anything. And remember, the more patterns you are using, the higher marks you will achieve. In any speaking, any writing, is all about showing off the examiner, so you may be able to recycle some of these sentences for your exam evidence in lessons. So remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Okay, if we sum it ymlaen now. So dyma'r atebion. If we go through the answers, you're more than welcome to share some of your answers in the chat. So the first one, bydda un mynd i'r cinema tomorrow. So I will be going to the cinema tomorrow. So bydda un. Bydd e teithio I Portugal and dyfodol. He will be travelling to Portugal in the future. Remember, if you want to change it to she, you just have to say bydd hi'n instead of bydd ein. Simon, exactly the same, bydd Simon. So you could change that sentence to anyone now. So bydd Jack yn symud, bydd Sarah yn symud. My advice would be, if you are mixing up in any tense between feminine and masculine, if you're mixing up your hi'n and ein's, just stick to the people's name. Because there was a past paper question about writing someone that you admire, and a lot of people did lose marks because maybe they wrote about Liam Williams, who identifies himself as a man, and they started using hyn throughout. Then the next one, byddwch chi'n prynu dillad newydd. So you will be buying new clothes today. And finally, byddan nhw'n mynd ar wyliau yfory. They will be going on holiday tomorrow. So rhoi'ch mark mas o 5, give a mark out of 5. So just send it in the chat. Okay, so we're going to sum it online now. So all of the skills from the session, we've gone over a few different tenses. We've revised the present tense, we've gone over the past tense, third person, conditional tense today, and future tense. So we're applying all of these skills, not just from today, from other sessions as well, in order to answer a 10-mark question. So in your exams or classroom-based assessments, you will have a 20-mark in Unit 3, a 25-mark writing task in Unit 4, and also in Unit 4 you'll have a 10-mark and a 15-mark writing task. So today we are going over the 10-mark task. This 10-mark task usually follows a poetry question. So we do not have to analyse the poem. It's just applying the skills that we've gone over so far in the 4 sessions. You need to look for the keyword in the question, skim and scan for the correct answers. But what happens with this 10-mark question is that the question is usually based on the theme of the poem. So if the poem was talking about area, the 10-mark question would talk about ardal area. If the poem was talking about spurial, rubbish, then it'd talk about spurial here following the poem. So the one that we're looking at today is going to be based on ardal area. Okay, so here are some tips whenever you answer a 10-mark question. So first of all, do not write an extended essay. This is just 10 marks. You should only spend about 10 minutes on this maximum, and it's basically answering the question. For the 20 and 25 marks in the examiner would expect more of an extended answer, but for this type of question, you would not have to write a whole page of information. It's not until the 20 and 25 marks that you're supposed to do that. If you're struggling with timing, I know you're not going to be sitting regular exams, but it may be a case that you're sitting assessments under exam conditions in lessons. So if you are one of the people struggling with timing, I would complete your writing task first, then go to the reading tasks. So what you need to do, you will be given English translations of these to help you in the exams. But what I would do, look for the keywords in the questions in Welsh and use them to structure your answer. So if, for example, you didn't know how to say I like in Welsh, you would just recycle hoffi from the text and use it to form your answer. So rydyn hoffi chwaraeon, I like sports. And again, today you didn't have the whole exam paper, but in classroom-based lessons now, you may be given an exam paper or past paper to use. So flick through and have a look if you can recycle any sentences from reading tasks to help you. So in a 10-mark based question, 5 marks are based on content. So that means, have you answered the questions? So if the question is about area and you start writing about music, you aren't really going to get the answers. So as long as you answer the questions, you will get hopefully the marks. Then the other 5 are based on the expression of language. So that means, have you used correct spellings? Have you used punctuation correctly? So have you started with a capital letter, full stop? Have you used mutations accurately? Have you changed your sentence patterns? So first of all, don't just use rydyn hoffi, hoffi, hoffi. First of all, it's boring. And also you're not showing off to the examiner that you know all of the sentence patterns that you've used from year 7 onwards. You need to show off to them that you know your work, you know your Welsh, and you deserve the grades that you are working for. Then also be careful of brackets. So following questions in Welsh, they would put marks in brackets. So if they ask for more than 1, so if they give 2+ in brackets, they may want a reason on the end. So for example, hoffech chi fyw yn Nghymru am byth? Would you like to live in Wales forever? Then they put pam. So on that type of question, they're looking for a reason. So they're looking for achos. However, they may also give 2 or more marks and expect 2 sentences. So ydych ffrindiau yn hoffi Cymru? So do your friends like Wales? So for that one, they wouldn't expect a reason. They just want you to write 2 sentences in the third person about whether your friends like Wales. So mae Jack yn hoffi Cymru achos mae'n hwyl. Dydy Ben ddim yn hoffi Cymru achos mae'n ddiflas, because it's boring. Then, as I've mentioned already, you may have to change your tenses and person. So be careful. The questions may switch from the present tense and then switch to the third person, talking about your friends. It may also switch to the past tense and conditional tense. So you need to be aware of that when answering the questions. So this is the question that we are going to answer today. And we're also going to go through some examples of responses by past candidates. So if you have a look, as I mentioned already, the questions in this task is translated for you. A lot of the questions in the exam are Welsh only, but when it comes to writing, they do tend to translate them into English for you. So ble ydych chi'n byw? Again, they're using a lot of formal writing. So ydych chi'n is exactly the same as wyt ti'n. Where do you live? And remember, that's the present tense. Beth sydd yn yr ardal? So what's in the area? Beth mae pobl ifanc yn gwneud yn yr ardal? So what do young people do in the area? Again, that's the third person. So you need to change from talking about yourself to talking about young people. I would personally use some of the keywords in the answer, like my pobl ifanc, to show to the examiner that you know, or make it clear that you're using the third person. And this is what we've gone over today, the conditional tense. So, beth hoffech chi gael yn yr ardal? What would you like in your area? And be careful, it says pam. Why? So, they haven't put under 2 marks this time, but they would expect an extra mark. A lot of candidates, a lot of people forget to put the reason on the end. So that's where they lose silly marks, because everyone knows how to write a reason in Welsh. Put achos and a reason. And that's an easy mark. And that could be a difference between an A and A star, C or D. So this is why we need to really double check that we're answering these correctly. Okay, so as I've mentioned already, you will get some marks for content and some marks for expression of your language, so mynegiant. So content, you will get 1 mark for saying where you live, 1 mark for saying what's in the area, 1 mark for saying what people do in the area, 1 mark for saying what you'd like to see, and 1 mark for saying why. So I would, before you finish your papers in lessons, just count, try and mark your own work. Have I said where I live? What's in the area? Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be true. No one's going to hold a spotlight or send you to police saying, are this information true about your area? In the exam, you write down what you can spell correctly. So it wouldn't bother people marking your paper if there's no cinema in the area and you've written down that there's a cinema. As long as it's spelled correctly, you change your sentence patterns, you will get your marks. Okay, so that's for 5 marks of the question. The other 5 are based on the accuracy of your language. So if you wrote short basic sentences, really bad spelling, you would get 1 mark. If you wrote 2 different sentence patterns with a reason, you would probably get 2 marks with spelling mistakes as well. So 2 basic sentences. If you wrote a description containing a really good reason and 2 different sentence patterns and better spelling, you would get 3 marks. So we are really aiming for 3+ in these. Then if you change 3 different sentence patterns, you would do that naturally by answering the questions anyway. Good reason, so maybe an extended reason, and effective spelling, accurate mutations, you get 4. And in order to get 5, you need basically accurate spelling, punctuation, mutations, changing patterns, changing persons, effective opinions in order to get the 5. So it needs to be perfect. With this, it's all about practice and just proofreading. I know under exam conditions you can't read it out, but if you read out things in your head, sometimes you can hear maybe mutation errors, spelling mistakes, or does the word make sense? So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a look at 3 different people's examples from past pupils, and we are going to say, or type in the chat if we can, how many marks is each piece worth out of 10. So you need to give 5 marks on content, so have they answered the question, and try to give 5 marks on their accuracy of language and have they answered the questions. Okay, so here is the first example. This is by Dan. So Dan ydy fi, enw, dwi'n byw yn Abertawe. Dwi'n hoffi Abertawe achos dwi'n hoffi traeth a chwaraeon. So he says where he lives. Dwi'n mynd I surfio a chwaraeon golf. So he's talking about what they do in the area briefly. If we go on, mae'n poblogaeth ond dim gyda fi. Mae'n Welsh gyda fi, chwaraeon. Mae'n cadw'n fit yn bwysig yn fy marn I. So he's talking about what's in the area. But if you notice, he doesn't really change his tenses. He doesn't really make it clear that it's young people as well. So does anyone want to have a go in the chat? How many marks would you give them for content? Any guesses? And for expression of language as well, he does change his sentence patterns. He does use a lot of hoffi. His spelling is quite accurate. There are some mutation errors in there, so it could be bwysig. Let's have a look. It should be Dan ydw I or fy enw I ydy. Let's have a look. Any more mutation errors? So it isn't perfect. There are some mutations. Mae'n boblogaeth, there's another one. So if we have a look at Mwali's example, rydyn byw yn by Colwyn. So that's saying, where do you live? Yn fy ardal, mae ganolfan hamdden, siopau, llyfrgelch, ysbyty ar ysgol. So he says what's in the area. I bobl ifanc, he's making it clear to the examiner what's there for young people. And yn fy ardal, hoffwn he's changing his tenses, saying what's in the area. But does he gain full marks? He's missing something. But if you have a look, this one is more detailed. But this one here, I would say probably has more marks for content. So you can share what you think it is. I will reveal the answers. There are 1 or 2 mutation errors, so it should be ac there. Here, sorry. For ysbyty. You don't need to mutate here. It should be my canolfan. Okay. And if we have a look at this extended one by Sophie, some people automatically think you need to write an extended answer, but as you'll see, sometimes people will write shorter answers for this 10-mark question. Sometimes achieves more or less the same marks because they've just followed the content and kept it relevant to the questions. So rydyn byw yn Abigail yn Hogledd Cymru. So she said where she lives. Does dim llawer o bethau I wneud yn fy ardal, ond rydyn hoffi fy ardal. Mae traeth mawr. So she's talked about what's in the area. If we skip a little bit, does dim llawer I bobl ifanc. Mae parc ysgrifenio yn Abigail, ond mae parc yn fach iawn. So she talks about, makes it clear what's in the area for young people. Then she switches her tenses. So hoffwn cinema. I would like a cinema. And she does attempt to give a reason as well. Okay, so you can type in the chat if you want to guess what you think she would have for content and expression. So this is what I've given. So Dan, I've given 3 marks for content. For me, I would be 50-50 with whether to give him 3 marks. For me, he'd have to make it more clearer to say what's there for the young people. So if you said my Pobl Ifanc and Surfio, I'd be more confident given that. I've dropped him, as I've mentioned already. He's made a lot of mutation errors. He said Hoffi a lot of the time. If he said mwynhau or maybe changed the tenses, he would get higher marks. Mwali, 4 for content. He hasn't gained the full marks because he missed out the reason. So that's a very common error. I've taken some marks off for he's changed his tenses, he's changed his patterns, but he has made some mutation errors and some spelling errors, which I've taken marks off for. For Sophie, she's gained 5 marks as she's answered all of the questions perfectly. I've taken some marks off for missing out some words. So Hoffni Wells Cinema, Hoffni Wells or Gael Clwbiau Ieuenctid. She's also made 1 or 2 mutation errors. But for me, the best candidate would be number 2, just because it's more concise. This person would have maybe spent 5 minutes answering this. Sophie may have spent 12 minutes on this. So in that time, Mwali could have spent more time gaining more marks in other aspects of the exam and only lost 1 mark, whereas potentially Sophie might have lost more marks by spending too much time on this question. So really aim for 10 marks maximum. So what we're going to do now is answer these questions. Okay, so to help you, I've given you some sentence starters. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer these questions in Cymraeg at home in Welsh. So remember, all answers need to be in Welsh. So first of all, ble ydych chi'n byw? Where do you live? I've given you the sentence starter, rydw i'n byw yn. Be careful, sometimes you need to mutate the place names. What's in the area? So what's cinema in Welsh? What's park? Keep it nice and simple. I know there might be an amgueddfa, a museum in your area, but if you know how to spell cinema and it's spelled correctly, then write it down for the exam boards. Beth mae pobl ifanc yn gwneud? What do young people do? So again, I've given you the sentence starter, mae pobl ifanc yn. Again, you're changing it to the 3rd person. If you did not remember the word for young people, again, look up the top and just, it's literally there. You just take off there, bit, sorry, and my pobl ifanc yn. So you could say they play football, they go to the cinema. As long as it makes sense, they will give you the mark. Then, for your 4th content mark, beth hoffech chi gael yn yr ardal? What would you like to have in the area? So you could say Hoffni Weld. Some of you might feel confident and say Hoffni Gael, I would like to have. And again, it doesn't have to be true. As long as you can spell it right and it makes sense, you'll get the mark. And then you need to give a reason why. For me, because it's in the conditional tense, you better write given a reason in the figure. So achos bydd yn, because it will be. I know some people automatically say achos mine because it is, but for me, because there's a different tense, it makes more sense saying a reason in the figure. So if you need any help with anything, just type in the chat. Okay, if we say 2 minutes, 2 minutes, you're more than welcome to share your answers. And remember, you can flick through exam papers and maybe recycle some words if you were struggling. Use the exam question to help you, the key words. So if you can remember what ardal was or how to spell that, you just copy it down. And be careful of your tenses as well. So you need to be thinking, if they said recently, that would be the past tense. This one here would, so that's amser model, future tense. What person is it? So it's asking about you, that's the 1st person. Area, that's more of the third person, so my something and adol. Young people, again, that's more of the third person, so my pobl ifanc yn. So un funud now, you're more than welcome to share your answers. If you have any questions, just type in the chat. And remember, you will have another question in the exam, a 15-mark question. So they may ask for maybe 2 in brackets or even 3. So it's the same type of thing, but you need to make sure you are writing more than one sentence, changing your tenses again. Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. And you may also want to extend your sentences further. So you could use some idioms, use some connectives, so a bod and honest, anffodus, aracyfan on the whole, hefyd also. But as long as you know, do not write an extended answer, just answer the questions that they're asking you. Okay, so if we sum it online now, so at the end of every session, I've given you some revision resources to help you. So these ones here are based on the future tense. So here's a reminder of the future tense patterns and how to change them to the negative. And if you want to create a question, again, you just mutate B to F, think of boyfriend, and add on a question mark. So you may have to correct some of these as well in a proof reading exercise. So you need to be familiar with these patterns. So that would, proofreading would be in your unit 3. I've also given you a copy of the keywords from the lesson today. Remember, in our classroom-based assessments, a lot of the questions are in Welsh. So if you didn't know what cyfieithwch was, or rhoi gylch, put a circle, ticioch, you may lose some marks. I've also given you some revision games that you can play at home. So that's to revise the future and conditional tense. I've also given you some Quizlet cards that you can use. So it's a bit like post-it notes, the Welsh on one side, the English on the other, and you can also play some games as well to revise these tenses. These will be really useful for any speaking evidence that you need to do and any reading and writing. I've also given you some condensed tables of the conditional tense. So this table shows the conditional tense in the negative, and again, for Hoff patterns, you would just add on a question mark and no mutation. Then B to F for facet for the negative and a question, double D for mutation, and drop the G for question for gap. And as I think this has already been put in the chat from Sue already, here are a reminder of the sessions that we've gone over so far. So we've revised the present tense and opinions, past tense and questions, third person, profiles and grids, future tense and conditional tense. So if you click the link or the one in the chat, you will hopefully be able to catch up on any sessions that you've missed, or reuse them as part of revision now for these evidence-based assessments for your predicted grades. Does anyone have any questions about anything? So type in the chat if you have any questions.
Na, dim cwestiwn wedi dod trwyddo.
Okay. So remember, make sure you are going back, revising or catching up on any sessions. These are based on the key skills that you need to get your C's+. So changing your tenses, skimming and scanning for the correct or reading tasks, 10-mark writing questions, you need to be changing your tenses there. And remember, keep playing these games at home. They are a really useful way of revision.
Gwych. Diolch yn fawr, Miss.
Thank you.
Like Miss explained, the recordings and all the resources are available on the Cyrsiau Cadlan Cymru website. If you can't find the link, then you can just type in Cyrsiau Cadlan Cymru into Google and it'll come up in your Google search. Diolch yn fawr.